One of the founding figures of modern Ottoman history, an important member of the Republic of Turkey in its formative decades, was Mehmed Fuad Köprülü, who was born in 1890 and died in 1966. Köprülü spent his youth writing and publishing in many newspapers and magazines. He was a deputy in the Turkish parliament for Kars several times. He was an undersecretary of education in the 1930s, and he was the Turkish foreign minister from 1950 to 1956. And through all this, he was also a scholar. And that's what I wanted to discuss today in this video, more about his scholarship, especially this book, The Origins of the Ottoman Empire, which is one of the books, along with Paul Wittek's The Rise of the Ottoman Empire, that really have still pretty much established the contours of Ottoman history, especially when we're talking about the early period. Although, neither book is really cited today for, information, it's still cited as, one of the kind of landmark books. Both I should say, both Köprülü and Wittek's works are cited for that. The origins of the Ottoman Empire were originally presented as lectures in Paris in 1934, and later was published in a Turkish edition in the 1950s, and then we did not get this English edition from that Turkish edition until the 1990s. Köprülü made several serious contributions to Ottoman history. The first being that he was an advocate for a more social history method, so focusing less on elites and more on common people. The second was that he wanted to show that the Ottoman Empire was a continuation in many ways of the Ilkhans, that is the Mongol dynasty of Iran, later then the Seljuk Empire, and then the Seljuks of Rum, from which the Ottomans are more kind of directly emerge out of. And within that, his other main point that he emphasized was the lack of religion among the Turkish peoples of Anatolia in the Middle Ages. He did not really think they had any kind of religious sort of ideas that were very strong or developed, and he was trying to sort of decenter Islam from the narrative about the Ottoman Empire. And I think given his, lifetime in the late Ottoman Empire and into the foundations of the modern Republic of Turkey, we could sort of understand why, given that, the Kemalist project was very secularist. And Köprülü's work itself was kind of influenced by this shift to Turkism. In his younger years, he published quite a lot of poetry, but as a move to kind of over time to sort of reform the Turkish language and strip out a lot of the Persian and Arabic words took root. Even his own writing of poetry changed, and to reflect this kind of attitude. And politically, he was pretty engaged with a lot of Turkist ideas. This was even before the end of the First World, before the beginning of the First World War, I should say. So all of that was really, I think, influential in his work. And it should be sort of no surprise then when he writes his history and becomes pretty combative in some ways to the notions of Western scholarship. And this is where I think it would be good to talk about his rivalry with Paul Wittek, who probably deserves his own video, but a lot of their stories are sort of intertwined because there was a pretty intense academic sort of enmity there. Wittek was also a kind of member of this First World War generation. He was born 1894 and served as an Austro-Hungarian cavalry officer in the First World War. And after Köprülü published his lectures, the original lectures that would become this book you see on screen, Wittek then wrote in response to Köprülü, as Köprülü laid out the ideas I just mentioned, this kind of Turkish heritage and lack of religion. And Wittek said that, he really disagreed with Köprülü's arguments. Wittek said, unfortunately, in this book, the investigations are limited to the earliest epoch. It did not go beyond the beginning of the 14th century. All the questions which are especially important for explaining the development towards an empire are therefore completely missing in this book. The fact that such an interpolation, which splits the whole genealogical connection, was possible and could establish itself proves that any tribal feeling, if such ever existed, had already disappeared. And Wittek is referring to, of course, the tribal kind of notions among the Turks. And he went on to say, yet even Fuad Köprülü has not been able to renounce this tradition. And he still maintains that the Ottomans are Kaya Oguzes and that their state was originally based on tribal links. And it should be noted that, Köprülü, Wittek is not really representing Köprülü entirely accurately. He does discuss, the Seljuks, the Oghanids, and a number, and he moves forward in time, talks about, Murad, the later, 14th and 15th centuries. But this, debate between Wittek, who advocated for a religious interpretation of the Ottoman Empire that I'll discuss in a moment, and Köprülü has still deeply influenced the field of Ottoman history today, and even these works are still cited, perhaps not for kind of hard information, but they are still cited because they are so influential, especially works on the beginnings of the Ottoman Empire. And what was Wittek's idea that was so different or was in a conflict with Köprülü? Wittek had an idea that the Ottoman kind of venture, if you will, coalesced around this Ghazi ethos, that it was this spirit of holy war that brought together kind of disparate people, Muslims, and Turks certainly, but disparate people. It got them out of this sort of clan structure that the Oghuz identity that Köprülü was exploring, and formed them into something totally new. And it was this Ghazi ethos that brought them together, and that's what really pushed them to the Ottomans to become kind of the strongest power in Anatolia. And certainly, I think Wittek's ideas are maybe criticized a little too much. I think I would just say that for myself, to be transparent, I tend to see a lot of insight in Wittek's perspective. But to get back to Köprülü, I think, you can see why someone in Köprülü's position would take a serious issue with Wittek, where Wittek was centering religion, and he was neglecting the longer history of Turkish people. And Wittek's work has a sense, somewhat of a, kind of heroic element to it. That it's these kind of Ghazi heroes, and not really the work of, building the empire that is. It's not really the work of, many different people, including the sort of commoners, taking part in society. And, so from that perspective, you can see, I think, quite easily why Köprülü was, really against Wittek. And the debate between Wittek and Köprülü went on for years. So in 1943, Köprülü published an article on ethnic issues in the early Ottoman Empire, and he spends 19 pages attacking Wittek's idea that the early Ottomans did not have any kind of Kaya tribal membership or identification, one of the Turkish tribes in Anatolia. And Wittek was, not really convinced by the idea that they had any sort of strong tribal, connections, and that it was the Ghazi ethos that overpowered everything. And Köprülü, says that basically Wittek is simplifying everything, and not really, looking more deeply. And this article, Wittek, interestingly, never responded to, never, published a response to Köprülü. Although, interestingly, Köprülü had been defended by Wittek before, and so their relationship was kind of complex. Wittek earlier had sort of been very supportive of Köprülü's work in the 1920s, but by the 1930s and 40s, this had changed significantly. What to kind of make of Köprülü's work? Where does he sit in kind of the development of Ottoman history and sort of Oriental studies? I think Köprülü, despite maybe my personal kind of disagreements with some of his theses, I think he did a very important task in placing the Ottoman Empire in a larger sweep of history, and bringing to the fore a more sort of social history approach. Way before that was, really a commonplace methodology. And indeed, his focus on kind of social history is still very strong, or that's still a very strong approach in Turkish scholarship today. And he prefigured the Anal school, if anyone's familiar, if you're familiar with that, maybe. But Köprülü's body of work, even though he published a lot in a lot of different venues, his sort of more academic work, he kind of complains a lot about, I've been trying to publish this, but I can't finish it. He was certainly very busy, being both a public official and a scholar, so that may explain why. But, he had a kind of aggressive personality, and maybe that was, somewhat justified. So I think I'll wrap it up here. This video is less biographical and more an exploration of some of his ideas, especially the debate with Wittek, because there's a lot more about Köprülü. He was very active in the Turkish Republic, and very important, and in several roles. He did die I think relatively young, 1966, and it was tragically by a car wreck, uh, and so he sort of died prematurely, unfortunately. So maybe if he had lived longer and perhaps retired, he would be able to, have published more work, in his later years. But I hope you found this interesting. At least, this is not as in depth on his life as some of my other videos, as much as I would have liked. But I also wanted to do another video about a scholar from Turkey, or from the kind of Middle East. So and highlighting their contributions. So thank you for watching, and talk to you in the next video.